Good morning, everyone. It's the day after Christmas, Gregorian Christmas. I hope everyone had a good Gregorian Christmas. The Julian Christmas is coming up on January 6th, and being married to a Russian, that's important. That's an important distinction for my family. And no, the shirt I'm wearing is not Satan. It's not a satanic t-shirt. Kind of looks like the Texas Longhorns, but it's not. It's just a generic shirt. This episode of my Plato series is going to just clarify one issue pertaining to emanation. I want to make it very clear that I'm not rejecting Plato's or the Neoplatonist or the Hermetic teaching on emanationism, or the concept of as above, so below, the teaching on correspondences, how the lower realms correspond to the higher realms, or the lower planes correspond to the higher planes, lower worlds, however you want to put it, corresponding to higher worlds. That also holds true for any given world, any given plane of existence, where certain patterns on Earth reflect certain patterns in the stars. I'm not trying to overturn any of that or deny any of that. What I am saying is that Plato's highest realm, which is the realm of forms, which in Plato's thinking are uncaused, like God himself, that doesn't exist, and that you can't have emanation. You can't rely on the concept of emanation to link this eternal, non-contingent, uncreated, uncaused realm with its dualistic opposite, the shadow world that is contingent, created, and caused, and temporal. That trying to do that is tantamount to what the Christians do with the person of the Logos in their Trinity, who becomes incarnate as Jesus Christ. Because, again, you can't link the uncreated with the created that way if you're going to use created and uncreated categories to do it. Jesus' flesh is created, his body is created, his humanity is created, and the person, quote unquote, the hypostasis of the Logos, which they teach pre-existed, is uncreated. So you still have these two categories, this dualistic category of the created and the uncreated. So trying to posit an incarnation to link the two together is just impossible. But within the realm of these eternally caused worlds, or cosmoi, within that context, Hermeticism certainly does hold true, and that's why magic works, and we don't have to throw out the principles of magic just because we're denying that Plato's ideal realm is a fantasy fiction. And it is. There's absolutely no evidence whatsoever for something like that. It's pure speculation, pure philosophy. It's not rooted in any kind of reliable metaphysical framework. So, how did everything come about then? How did the eternally caused creation, how was it caused? Well, obviously, being finite, we don't have direct insight to the precise way in which that happened, but we do know that that there was an ether, or that there is an ether, which we associate with the body of the goddess, right? The body of God, which is the goddess. It is consciousness, the realm of consciousness. You can call it the ether, the prima materia, the original prime matter. Consciousness. It's an infinite field, because God, being infinite, his body is infinite necessarily. And out of that, he separates, quote unquote. It's not a literal separation, since his body isn't physical per se, and it's not corporeal. You can't literally dice up and cut up parts of his body because it's infinite, but you can, quote unquote, isolate parts of his infinite body by, I guess the best way to describe it, it's not a perfect way to describe it, but the best way to describe it is, you know, it's like a body of water, of a perfectly calm lake or pool, and then suddenly you disturb it and you create all these ripples and all these waves. He disturbs it, so to speak, by acting in a particular manner towards a particular goal, which in this case is to bring about the cosmos. And so, but you could think about it in terms of separating off or bracketing off one part of his infinite conscious being from the rest of it. It's what Dr. Joseph P. Farrell, if anyone is familiar with him, called the primary scission, I think is how you pronounce that. So you're taking what already pre-exists, this infinite consciousness. Therefore, we're not talking about creation out of nothing. That is not the creation out of nothing. Creation ex nihilo, as taught in Christianity, is not the only other option we have if we're going to deny emanationism. It's not either emanation, Platonic emanation, or Christian ex nihilo creationism. God is taking his pre-existing consciousness, and he is dividing up his consciousness into finite localized beings and objects. So that from which he creates the cosmos is already there, it's pre-existent, but it's not pre-existent as fully formed ideas or forms that become the blueprint for the shadow world that we live in now, which is a copy of it. That is what we're rejecting. So, yeah, it's almost like whereas his whole body had simultaneous access to every possible data point, now by separating his body out, he's withholding certain data points from certain aspects, from certain areas or portions, so to speak, of his body or infinite consciousness. Much the same way that all the water in an ocean is part of the ocean, but then you can start to separate out one part of the ocean from another with whirlpools. So think of these individual objects or beings in God's consciousness as like a whirlpool forming in this vast ocean. Suddenly, the whirlpool has the water from the surrounding ocean pouring into it and coming out of it, but it's not the whole ocean, it's a localized part of the ocean. So God localizes himself when he takes on this modality of finiteness, so to speak. Not literally, but he doesn't lose access to all of his other knowledge. He remains omniscient in his totality, but then he also experiences what it is like to be finite. And I would submit that if God couldn't experience what it was like to be finite, then he wouldn't be God, because there's something he wouldn't be able to do. I don't think there's a whole lot. I could try to add more to this, but it would just be really straining at gnats, because this is kind of beyond analogies. There's no other way to explain it, because we're finite. Our minds can't comprehend the precise mechanics of this, but I think the analogy suffices. So you guys have a good morning, and that'll do it for episode 6.